The lights in the hall were bright and cold, spreading white shine on every perfect face. Men in tailored suits stood with drinks in their hands, and women in sleek dresses smiled at nothing. They all worked for Vidicor Industries, the most famous company in the world. To be here, one had to look perfect. To be imperfect was to be invisible. Claire Monroe had walked through the front doors as if perfection meant nothing. Her dress was old-fashioned, her hair not styled by a robot system, and her body not shaped by the company's beauty programs. She was a brilliant engineer, one of the youngest to design new ship engines. But no one at the party cared for minds that did not look good on camera. When she stepped up to the table of the executives, the music softened and heads turned. The CEO of Vidicor, Darren Holt, tall and confident, with a smile that never looked real, saw her from across the room. "Da!" He looked her up and down, and his grin widened. The people around him watched, waiting for his reaction. Darren leaned toward his friends and said in a voice loud enough for the room to hear, "No one marries a fat girl." The laughter that followed seemed to echo from the glass walls. Claire stood still. She did not cry, did not shout, did not walk away in anger. She looked straight at Darren Holt, with the same calm she used when fixing engines under pressure. Her heart hurt, yes, but her mind was already moving somewhere else, somewhere far beyond the faces that mocked her. That night, she left the party before the fireworks, before the toasts, before the cameras came out. Outside, under the pale glow of the city's shields, she stood alone. Her hands were shaking, not with sadness, but with the sharp energy of purpose. The words had cut deep, but they also unlocked something powerful. All her life she had believed intelligence could change the world. Now she knew emotion could, too. Anger, pain, pride, all things that made humans human. Maybe these were stronger than the perfect symmetry Vidicor tried to sell. Claire went home to her small apartment filled with half-broken machines. On her table lay pages of old notes, blueprints drawn by hand, not by software. She pushed aside the mess and opened the one marked GR resonator. It was not finished, not even tested, but she believed it could change how ships moved through space. The design was built on sound waves and mass vibration. Instead of forcing a ship through gravity, it could dance through it, hum its way between stars. It was a dream she had stopped working on because everyone at the company had laughed when she spoke about it. Only fools dreamed of new physics, they said. Now she thought, let them laugh again. As she worked through the night, she forgot the cold laughter from the party. She forgot every rule the company had taught her. Her fingers moved fast, drawing new lines, correcting mistakes. She realized that the same part of her brain that could build engines also understood something deeper, that life was not meant to be perfect. It was meant to move forward, even when heavy. By morning, her walls were covered with ideas. Equations ran down one side, and sketches of a ship, small but powerful, took over the other. Dawn came with soft light. She looked outside at the high towers of Vidicor across the city. They shone like silver spears, perfect but empty. Down below, she saw people walking, workers, children, cleaners, all different, all human. They were beautiful in ways the company would never understand. That sight gave her strength. She packed her tools, a few old memory drives, and her paper notes into a small case. She knew she could not work for Vidicor anymore. She also knew she would not beg them to believe in her. She would build what they could not imagine. As she left her room, she turned off all digital links. No one would track her where she was going. By evening, she had reached the old lunar docks. They were empty now, closed for years, but deep inside those halls were old ship frames that could be rebuilt. Claire looked around and smiled for the first time that day. It was quiet, perfect for creation. The silence was heavy, but it felt like home. She wrote 3 words on the metal wall near the old engine bay. Asterisk, asterisk, beauty is persistence. Asterisk, asterisk. Then she locked the doors and began her new life. That night, while the world of Vidicor slept under its bright towers, one woman stared at the stars and planned a ship that would make gravity sing. The words that had tried to break her had instead become the fire that would. One day move heaven itself. The moon was quiet, except for the small clicks and hums of old machines turning back to life. The halls of the closed lunar docks had been silent for many years, but now sparks began to fly again as Claire Monroe worked day and night. Dust floated around her in soft silver clouds, and the air smelled like metal and oil. She had no team, no sponsor, and no camera crew. What she had was her mind, her hands, and a dream that refused to die. Weeks passed, and the small corner of the dock started to look alive again. Claire had repaired lights on one side, cleaned parts of old engines, and set up a small living area made of broken storage crates. There was nothing elegant about it, but it was enough for her. Every morning she awoke as the earth rose above the dusty horizon, a glowing blue-white jewel hanging in silence. But it reminded her what she was working for. Not perfection, but the freedom to be human. One night, a small ship landed near the dock. Claire hid behind a wall at first, afraid it might be a Vidicor patrol. But instead, a young man stepped out, carrying a metal case. He looked tired and worn, his uniform dirty and torn. His name was Eli Turner, once a logistics officer for Vidicor's supply branch. He had worked on shipping routes, not war, but he carried scars on his cybernetic arm, marks of punishment for asking too many questions at the company. His arm had been built to be smooth and silver, but after years of work he had stopped repairing it to perfection. It looked rough, scratched, and human. He had heard rumors of a woman building something new on the moon, a woman who refused to change herself to fit the company's idea of beauty. When he saw her standing there, covered in dust and oil, his voice shook a little. "I'm not here to harm you," he said. "I just need a place to work. I can help." Claire studied him for a moment and saw truth in his eyes. She nodded slowly. "And help me fix the life support system," she said. It was the first time she let another person into her new world. Days turned into months, and soon others found their way to the dock. There was Kara Brooks, a scientist who had lost her career because she stuttered during a live broadcast. No one in Vidicor wanted a public speaker who wasn't smooth and perfect. But under Claire's guidance, Kara's voice grew strong again. Her ideas were clear, her mind sharper than any talk show could show. Then came Daniel Reeves, a former pilot whose nervous system had been damaged after years of using enhanced reflex chips. When his reaction time slowed by a few milliseconds, Vidicor replaced him with a new recruit and left him behind. He joined Claire with the quiet strength of someone who had seen too much of the company's cruelty. Together, they repaired old generators, rewired systems, and tested the first model of Claire's dream engine, the gravitational resonator. It was no larger than a kitchen refrigerator, but inside it was a song. When activated, it sent low waves through the walls, a deep hum that made the dust rise into soft spirals. Kara said it sounded like the heartbeat of the moon. Eli laughed and called it the first breath of freedom. Claire named the place Sanctum 1, though no one outside their small group knew it existed. It became a home for those the world had thrown away. People began to send secret messages, short and careful, asking if they too could join. There were engineers, teachers, mechanics, and even a few artists. All wanted to help, not for power, but for purpose. Sometimes, when the work was done, they would sit together near the landing bay and look up at Earth. The lights of cities glowed like spiderwebs across the dark curve of the world. Claire would listen to the quiet breeze inside the metal halls and think about what kind of world she wanted to return to. Not a world of shining towers, she thought, but one where no one had to hide for being real. Eli once asked her why she did all this. She smiled a little, her face half lit by the soft glow of old machinery. "Because someone told me I was not good enough," she said, "and I decided to prove that being human is not a weakness." He nodded, looking at her with respect, not pity. "You are building something bigger than a ship," he said. "You're building a reason to believe again." Under her leadership, the small team continued to work on the resonator. They built new housing around it, using pieces from forgotten ships. Each success, each test, made them more confident. When the drive finally produced a small, controlled pulse of gravity, the room filled with cheers. The waves shook the floor and rattled old tools, but no one cared. It was proof that faith could move more than emotions. It could move the very fabric of space. Claire stood there with a calm smile, hands covered in dust. She looked around at the faces of her new family and said, "This is only the beginning," and deep in the heart of the silent moon, their laughter and joy echoed for the first time in decades, carrying a promise that one day the whole world would hear their sound. Months turned into years, and the quiet moon was no longer silent. The team on Sanctum 1 had built something powerful and alive. The resonator ship, which they now called the Eidolon, was nearly complete. Its curved body was made from old hull pieces, welded together by hand. Inside, glowing veins of blue light ran along the walls where the new drive was connected. Every bolt, every wire carried not only effort but hope. Claire Monroe stood before the great window and watched space spread out in silver darkness. Earth glowed far away, calm and distant. She wondered if anyone down there thought about the people who had left. On most days, she hoped they didn't. On other days, she hoped Darren Holt still remembered the woman he had once mocked. Vidicor had grown stronger in those years. Ships filled the system, selling perfection to every colony. The company's symbols were painted over every dock and space station. People worked endlessly to afford the newest enhancements and skin updates. And yet, whispers had started to spread among the workers and pilots. Whispers of a woman on the moon who was building something that could change everything. He called her the Queen of Mass, though she was no queen in her own eyes. Claire's team listened to those rumors with smiles. He didn't need to correct the stories. Hope needed myths to survive. Still, Claire worried. Rumors would eventually reach Darren Holt. Vidicor controlled all major channels, and nothing spread without their notice forever. That day came sooner than expected. One quiet morning, Eli Turner entered the control room holding a small transmitter. Static came from it, and then a cold voice spoke through. It was from one of their secret watchers near the edge of Earth's orbit. Vidicor fleets are moving, the message said. They're testing new tracking systems. They may be coming for you. The air inside Sanctum 1 felt heavier after that. Claire did not panic. She knew it would happen one day. All around her, Kara, Daniel, and the others looked tense, but determined. They had been waiting for this moment. If Vidicor wanted to silence them, it meant their work mattered. Claire gathered everyone in the main bay. The room smelled like heated metal and oil. The hum of the resonator filled the walls like a heartbeat. She looked at her team, each of them strong in their own way. "We built this to give people hope," she said. "If they come, we will not run. We'll show them what real humanity can do." Eli checked the external sensors. "If they track our power signals, they will find us soon," he said. Kara nodded. "Then we have to show them something they will never forget." For days, they worked without sleep. They reinforced the docks, built shields, and loaded the small ship systems with defense charges. The resonator was strong enough to confuse scanners, sending out waves that made their location blur like a mirage. As they prepared, more people arrived. Small ships slipped through the dark, bringing engineers and miners, even families who had escaped Vidicor's reach. Sanctum 1 became more than a base. It became a small city of outcasts and dreamers. When Claire walked through the corridors, people stopped to greet her with quiet respect. Many still called her queen, though she never asked for it. She only smiled and told them that they were all rulers of their own lives now. But deep inside, she felt the weight of that title. It meant she carried the hopes of everyone who had been told they weren't perfect enough to belong. Eli and Daniel spent long hours testing the ship's pulse drives. Every time they powered it up, it filled the station with low, musical vibrations. It was not a machine's noise, but something close to a human hum, deep and steady. People would stop working just to listen. It calmed their fear. When the warning finally came, the Earth was bright behind Vidicor's fleet. It glimmered like silver insects spreading across the dark. They looked beautiful and lifeless at once. Darren Holt was on the command ship, proud as ever, ready to make an example of the woman who refused to follow his rules. Inside Sanctum 1, no one felt afraid anymore. Claire stood before the great window, her hand against the glass. "They think they know what power looks like," she whispered. "Let's show them another kind." She ordered everyone to the Eidolon. The ship's lights came alive, glowing like sunrise through metal. The resonator began to hum louder, the sound growing warmer and fuller. The floor shook softly, then steadied. Kara's fingers danced over the controls while Eli set the course. Daniel's voice came through the comm line. "All systems ready," he said. Claire took her seat at the center of the command deck. Her team looked to her. She smiled, not cold like Holt's grin, but soft and real. "We are not their shadows," she said. "We are what they forgot to be." Then, with a single nod, she gave the signal. The Eidolon rose from the surface of the moon, surrounded by a whisper of silver light. The hum deepened into a note that seemed to echo through space itself. As the ship lifted higher, people on board felt something inside them shift, the memory of shame turning into strength. They were no longer the broken or the unwanted. They were the ones who would remind the world what it meant to be human. Far below, the moon's surface trembled as Sanctum 1's docks emptied of silence for the first time. The journey had begun. The silence of space filled with tension. The bright line of Vidicor ships came closer, each one carrying the mark of perfection. They were polished and fast, built to look beautiful even in battle. Their leader, Darren Holt, stood on the bridge of the largest ship. He looked calm, but his pride burned inside him. The thought of Claire Monroe surviving in the dark corners of the system was more than an insult. It was an open challenge. He looked at the image of the moon on his screen. "End this," he said to his officers. "Show the people what happens to those who refuse order." The command ships prepared their weapons. Lines of light aimed toward the surface where Sanctum 1 still glowed under quiet shadows. Darren expected fear, but what came from the moon was something else. The light around the old docks began to rise, wrapping itself around a shape larger and brighter than anything he had seen. The Eidolon moved upward, surrounded by a soft wave of silver motion. It did not speed forward like normal ships. It drifted with grace, carried by rhythm instead of force. The resonator was singing again, a sound too deep to be heard but felt in every ship close enough to touch the wave. Inside the Eidolon, Claire sat in her seat quietly watching the fleet ahead. Kara reported the readings. "Their weapons are charging," she said. Eli looked nervous, but focused. "The wave shields are ready," he said. Daniel gripped the controls. "First move is theirs," he said. Claire's voice was calm. "They only understand beauty when it shines on them," she said softly. "Let us show them beauty that fights back." The Vidicor fleet opened fire. Dozens of bright beams filled the dark between Earth and the moon. For a moment it looked like a ring of sunlight breaking open. The beams struck the Eidolon's shields, flashing into ripples of energy. Instead of breaking apart, the ship began to hum faster, the sound spreading across the cum channels like an echo in a cave. The resonator responded like a living creature. Each time energy struck, it turned vibration into movement, bending space slightly around the ship. It was not magic, but a dance of sound through mass and gravity. To the people watching, it looked like the Eidolon was moving between the lights, never in the same place twice. Inside Holt's ship, confusion spread. Their scans could not lock on to the target. Every time they tried to fire again, the system showed 3 possible positions of the same ship. Holt shouted orders, his calm smile fading. "Focus. Find her. End this now." But the more they fired, the stronger the resonator grew. From the Eidolon's deck, Kara sent out the first harmonic pulse. It was not made to destroy. It was meant to show power. The wave passed through Vidicor's front line silently. Ships lost balance, drifting out of formation. Lights flickered. Engines stalled. Pilots cried out as their screens filled with strange, soft patterns, almost like sound turned into color. The people on Sanctum 1 watched the sky with wide eyes. The power of their creation had moved the air and ground. Some began to cheer, others cried. Claire's name spread through every comlink, and for the first time, hope reached places the company had ruled by fear. But Claire did not smile yet. She knew Darren Holt would not stop. The next wave of attacks was stronger, closer. The Vidicor fleets tried to use old war tactics, surrounding her ship in a ring of light. Claire leaned forward, her eyes calm and sharp. "Oh." Eli released the second frequency, she said. The ship began to glow brighter. The hum became steady, deep, filling every heart aboard with warmth. When the second wave of sound left the Eidolon, space itself seemed to ripple. Ships that came too close found their engines shutting down. The hum passed through metal and into human minds. Many soldiers stopped fighting, as if waking from a spell of control. Darren Holt could not believe what he saw. "How?" he muttered. "What is this thing?" Claire's voice came over every open communication line, reaching his bridge, calm and unshaken. "You built a world that worships perfection," she said. "But perfection is hollow. Real power comes from those who keep going, even when they're broken. Her words spread across the channels, recorded by cameras, shared by thousands who still listened. On Earth, people watching screens started whispering. Some cried. Others turned off their Vidicor displays and went outside to look at the sky. Holt slammed his hand on the screen. "Silence her now," he shouted. But the fleet could not move as before. The system had changed. The resonance had reached the core of their engines and minds. It was not a weapon made of hate, but a wave made of human emotion. Claire turned to her team. "We do not destroy them," she said. "Show them what they forgot." Kara nodded, tears on her cheeks. "They are hearing us at last," she whispered. The Eidolon stopped firing any further waves. It stood silent and bright, surrounded by the wreckage of pride. Across the system, Vidicor's control began to fracture. Workers abandoned their posts, ships stopped their patrol, and Darren Holt watched as his perfect empire started to break under the weight of something stronger than fear. In that quiet moment, Claire looked back at Earth. Its oceans glimmered blue, pure and alive. She whispered to herself, "This is beauty. The war was not over yet." But the sound of change had begun, quiet and unstoppable. The light of battle had faded. Empty silence of space was filled with drifting pieces of broken metal and dim sparks that looked almost like stars. The Vidicor fleet was gone, silenced by the weight of its own pride. In the soft glow of the moon's horizon, the Eidolon floated like a monument to everything the company had once tried to hide. It was a symbol of what humans could do when they stopped trying to be perfect and started trusting what made them real. Inside the command deck, Claire Monroe stood at the front window, looking at the planet below. Earth rotated slowly, its oceans shining in calm blue. She had spent half her life reaching toward this view. Now it filled her with peace and sadness at the same time. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "And it's ours again." Every person on board watched her in silence. Eli Turner stood beside her, his jacket torn, his face tired but proud. Kara Brooks sat near the navigation screen, her fingers still shaking from the hours of tension. Daniel Reeves leaned against the wall, his arm bandaged from the fight. They had all survived what everyone else thought was impossible. Messages began to arrive from different colonies. Some were simple thanks. Others were requests for guidance. Many were only quiet voices, saying they wanted to live in a world that did not punish them for being who they were. Claire read each message with care. Her heart felt heavy but full. The small light that had started in Sanctum 1 had now become something bigger than she had ever dreamed. Eli turned to her. "They are asking for a leader," he said. "They want someone who can help rebuild what Vidicor destroyed." Claire looked down, thinking. "They don't need a leader," she said. "They need a chance to lead themselves." Kara smiled weakly. "Still, they need someone to guide the first step," she said. "That someone is you." Claire wanted to say no, but she saw their faces. These were not soldiers or followers. They were people who had seen hope with their own eyes and decided it was worth fighting for. She gave a small, tired smile. "Then the first step will not be mine alone," she said. "We take it together." They guided the Eidolon back to the moon. Sanctum 1 had changed. What was once quiet and broken now shone with life. Refugees and builders came from across the solar colonies, carrying whatever tools and dreams they had. New homes were being built among the old docks. Gardens were planted in the craters. Music played through the halls. People laughed again. Claire watched them from the loading bay, her heart calm. The day the delegates arrived from Earth, Claire stood near the edge of the dock. They came in bright company ships, still painted with the old Vidicor symbols, but their faces were no longer filled with pride. They looked humble, even unsure. Darren Holt was among them, older, thinner, his eyes no longer shining with power. The fall of Vidicor had left him with nothing but memory. He walked toward Claire slowly. The air between them seemed heavy with all that had passed. Holt stopped and lowered his head. "You won," he said quietly. "I never understood what you were fighting for." Claire looked at him with patient eyes. "I was not fighting to win," she said. "I was fighting so no one else would have to lose themselves trying to be perfect." Holt nodded, shame flickering on his face. "I used to believe success was only for the flawless," he said. "Maybe I'm seeing for the first time how wrong that was." She gave a small nod. "Then start again," she told him. Live with the people you tried to fix. Learn what real beauty looks like. Without anger or pride, she turned away and left him standing by the bright gates of Sanctum 1. There was nothing more to prove. In the days that followed, the governments of Earth and the colonies came together to sign a new declaration. It ended the rule of Viticore forever and promised that no human being would ever be judged by appearance or design again. The document carried words that would echo through generations. The measure of beauty is persistence under pressure. Claire never called herself a ruler, but people began to refer to her as the Queen of Mass. It was not a title of vanity. It meant she carried gravity, the invisible pull that held people together. From the rebuilt moon base, she oversaw the creation of a new fleet of ships, built not for war, but for discovery and aid. Children grew up learning her name and the story of the ship that sang through the stars. Years later, as Claire grew older, she often returned to the same window on the Eidolon. She would stand quietly and look out over Earth, remembering the girl who had once stood at a party while people laughed around her. That moment now seemed far away, like a shadow in sunlight. She smiled softly and whispered, "You were wrong, Darren," because history had chosen a different path. The world no longer cared about flawless faces. It cared about the courage to stay true. When people looked at the sky, they did not see the perfection Viticore promised. They saw the light of ships that carried hope beyond the horizon, guided by a queen who had once been called unworthy. And somewhere deep in space, the soft hum of the resonator still echoed, singing the song of humanity that would never fade.